Hey there, welcome to Craft Central Designs. Today I have for you this very pretty floral wreath, perfect for summer, with lots of beautiful florals in pinks and white, a decorated wood flower insert, and a gorgeous mixed ribbon bow. This is a repost. If you feel like you've seen this before, you actually did a few days ago, but I discovered some background noise and I'm just including a little bit shorter version of this video this time, but I think you will get the idea of the instructions. Welcome to all to my channel today, and if you're not currently a subscriber, I hope you will consider becoming one and hit that notification bell so you will be notified each and every time I upload a video, which I do 2 to 3 times a week, with detailed tutorials on home, holiday, and gift decor. Okay, let me show you how I created this lovely, colorful, floral summer wreath. I have here a styrofoam wreath form that I picked up at Walmart. It's 15.5 inches in circumference and about 2.5 inches thick. Now, you could use a floral foam wreath ring if you like for this project. I would just suggest using some type of material that you could stick the faux flowers and the stems of the faux flowers. I have here a flower that I purchased in the wood department at 40% off at Hobby Lobby. Now, they do have a wood flower. It's smaller at the Dollar Tree, and they also have a floral foam wreath ring that you could use at the Dollar Tree, so that would coordinate well with this smaller flower. I have here some half wood rounds that I thought I might use for the center, but I didn't, but it's also a very good option to just paint those and use those for the center of the flower insert that's going to go in the middle of the wreath. I'm going to be painting that wood flower white. You'll see that in just a bit. So I have here a collection of florals that I purchased at Hobby Lobby during their 40% off week. Those are beautiful, deep, kind of a fuchsia. I believe they're peonies, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me on that if you like. I have there some white hydrangeas. And I'm going to be using larger florals on this wreath, as well as just some filler flowers, but primarily larger florals. Here's some greenery that I picked up as well at 40% off at Hobby Lobby. I have here a trailing ivy, a very leafy, nice, pretty green piece of greenery that I love using from Hobby Lobby, and my favorite, this very fine fern type greenery, again from Hobby Lobby. And I have here a collection of just some fillers that I had accumulated in my floral stash. And I'm going to be adding those to fill in spaces on the wreath around the larger elements of that wreath. Also, those are great for filling in around the outside edges. I'm going to be outlining the petals of this flower, and I have here a twine that I didn't end up using. I ended up using a fuchsia colored twine that I purchased at the Crafter's Square section at the Dollar Tree, and I'll show you that in just a bit. Now I have 3 different types of ribbon, again, 40% off week at Hobby Lobby. I have here this beautiful Robert Stanley white wired burlap ribbon, 2.5 inches. Another Robert Stanley ribbon. This ribbon with the larger white polka dots, 2.5 inch. And then I have this wired ribbon as well, Robert Stanley with a smaller polka dot. I'm going to be creating a triple ribbon bow for this wreath. I'm going to need pipe cleaners to create the bow, or the bows plural. There's 3 of them included in that one large bow. Here's a couple of more flowers that I included in the wreaths. A beautiful full bloom white rose and these beautiful flowers as well. And I wish I could tell you what the name of them is, but I don't really know. So if you know, just include that in the description box. I don't know the names of all the flowers I use. I just know what's beautiful. And here I have a little high sign that I believe I purchased that on Amazon at some point in time. It's extremely lightweight, a small little sign. I'm going to be painting that white and putting some polka dots all over it. You'll see me do that in a bit. I'll show you how I did that. Of course, you'll need scissors, a hot glue gun, and some Aleene's tacky glue. Now, I chose to trim my wreath form up a bit. If you get this one from Walmart, it just does have those pointed edges, which for some reason bothered me. Now, you do you. I don't really think it makes a difference if you do this or not, but I did it. Just because I wanted it to be a little bit more rounded on the edges, like a regular floral foam wreath ring. Okay, so now I'm going to create a triple ribbon bow, and I'm going to use this white burlap for the base of my bow. My tails are going to be 14 inches, and the loops of my base bow in the white burlap are going to be around 12 inches. I'm going to be doing a new bow tutorial, so if you want to catch that bow tutorial in the near future, I'm going to break it down in great detail how to create bows. But for this tutorial, it's sped up a bit, and I hope you can just learn something as you watch. As I go along, I just fold over my loops, pinch it in the center, and I can keep a good eye on whether my loops are symmetrical just by pulling them up and matching them up to one another. Don't necessarily have to have a ruler for this. Maybe when you're beginning and learning how to do it, that might be helpful. See how I did that? But I'll show you all of that in the bow tutorial. So I'm creating a 6-loop bow, 3 loops on each side. And as I mentioned, this is going to be the base of my bow that's going to go on this beautiful floral wreath. So you can see there, I just pinch my ribbon in the center. I'm holding all of those loops secure, adjusting the size of my loops if need be. And the last loop on the right side, I'm going to fold that over, pinch it, and then I'm going to take a pipe cleaner, wrap it around the center where my fingers currently are, right around there, bring it around the back, twist it, and now I have all those loops secured for my base of my triple ribbon bow. We're going to cut that tail off from the spool at the same 14 inches that you originally cut or pinched, I should say, the ribbon so that you had a 14-inch tail. I'm just going to shape my loops a little bit, open them up so they can receive layer number 2 or tier number 2 of this bow. The next tier is going to be the 2.5-inch pink ribbon with the larger white polka dots. And I'm going to be doing the loops of that layer of the bow a little bit smaller. I want to say around 10 to 10.5 inches. And I'm going to create it exactly the same way as I created the first bow. 6 loops, 3 loops on each side. You see how I place my bow loop up to the base bow so I can see if I'm actually getting my loops a little bit smaller, because I want the size of my loops to graduate to larger as you go down the bow, but from the bottom up I want them a little bit smaller as you graduate up the bow. Did that make any sense, what I just said? Hopefully I'll explain it better in the next video. But if you already know how to make a bow and you don't want to watch this part, you could just easily just forward over it. It's that easy. But I think bows are one of the most beautiful elements of a wreath. And so to create a beautiful bow and to learn how to create a beautiful bow, to me, it's just absolutely essential for the wreath making process. Going to wrap a pipe cleaner around, a half a pipe cleaner this time, around the center of that bow layer and twist it in the back. Open up those bow loops to receive the last tier, and I already cut that off from this spool. Now, last but not least, the top layer or the top tier of this bow. Now, this is going to be a little bit smaller, the loops. I want to say around 9 to 9.5 inches. And I'm going to just form my loops exactly the same way that I did for the other bows. Fold it over, pinch it in the center, making sure that the right side of the ribbon is up by twisting every time you create a loop. Twist, there was that twist. Fold it over, pinch it in the center. Now what we're going to do with this bow is we're going to finish this bow off by creating a loop going right down the center. So I'm going to take a half a pipe cleaner, wrap around those loops there in the center to secure them, and now I'm going to create that center loop. Twist the ribbon so I have the right side up, and I'm just going to simply roll that under, catch it with my thumb, and create one single loop going right down the center of my bow. And this is how you finish off a bow in the center. This is really very, very easy once you understand the construction of this bow, which is what I'm going to be going over in detail on my upcoming tutorial. Okay, so I have a center loop. I have a tail coming out the top now. I'm just going to cut that off. That's a 14-inch tails as well, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. And then I'm just going to poke that tail right down the center loop there, marry it up with the other tail. And now all my tails are 14 inches. And all of my bow tiers are formed. Now all I have to do is place them together in the center. So we're just going to stack our bows one upon the other, nice and flush. I'm going to place my hand right on the center of the bow, separating the tails. You see how I did that? Now, we have fireworks again. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to edit those out. I did it once. I'm not doing it twice. Okay, so matching up the centers there. Hopefully it won't be too disturbing this time, but it is nearing July 4th. And so, yeah, fireworks. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that top bow on there, matching up the centers. Any of the pipe cleaners in the back that are long, I just cut them off so I can get a nice flush application, one bow on top of another. I make sure they're all aligned as I'm showing you there with my finger right down the center, and I'm pressing very firmly together. Now I'm going to take a full-size pipe cleaner, wrap it around all of those bow layers, twist it in the back, and you have a triple ribbon bow. Now, later on, you'll see when I actually go to put this bow on the wreath, I ended up, because of the thickness of that wreath, that's a pretty thick wreath, actually, those pipe cleaners were not going to fit around that wreath form. So I ended up putting a long floral wire right through the center of that bow and attaching it that way because it gave me much longer tails. You'll see, I'll talk about that later on, but I'm just mentioning that because those pipe cleaners are not going to fit around that wreath. I'm going to be placing that bow at 9 o'clock on the wreath, so it's actually going to inhabit an area from 10 o'clock to 8 o'clock, or 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, however you want to look at it. There we have it, one beautiful bow. Okay, now we have our flower. Now, you can prepare your flower first if you like, and you'll see how I prepared that in just a bit on the video. Or you can just keep your flower positioned on the wreath and start building your florals around the flower. The reason why I did this is because the flower is actually 12 inches in diameter, and it takes up a good portion of that wreath. So I didn't want to waste the florals, A, and B, just have to reposition them by not putting that flower down to see exactly how much space it was going to take up. So I decided to just let that flower lay there. And now I'm just doing a dry run here, but positioning my flowers around that flower on the wreath. I'm just going to be cutting off my flowers, my peonies and my hydrangeas with wire cutters, leaving about a 2-inch stem. Now this is going to go very nicely down into that dense styrofoam. It's going to hold those florals beautifully. However, if you have any concerns about them coming out, which I don't really know how they would, but if you do, feel free to just run a line of tacky glue, maybe Aleene's tacky glue, right down that 2 inches of the stem. Just poke it into the wreath form, and you have that double assurance that everything's very firm and stable in that wreath if you have it in a hot climate, or in most climates right now in the different parts of the country are hot. So, that's up to you. So when I position my flowers in the styrofoam, I don't press them straight in. More so, I angle them in. So they're pointing more outward than straight up, if that makes sense. I'm constructing the wreath so that in an attempt to not cover up any more of the flower than absolutely necessary. So I have my hydrangeas in there. Now I'm going to add my pink flowers, and I'm just poking them in at different angles, different positions. I also have 2 white full bloom, if I could speak, roses that are going to go in there, and they're absolutely gorgeous. I purchased those at Hobby Lobby as well in the floral section with the higher end florals. The hydrangeas, and I'm just going to call them peonies because I think that's what they are. I got those in the other section of florals where the florals are a little less expensive. But regardless, all 40% off every other week. Hobby Lobby has bomb florals. You really have to go and see them to appreciate them. Okay, so I still have my flower in there. I have my main big flowers all positioned in the styrofoam. Now I'm just going to be able to lift that flower out later and do the embellishment that I have planned for that flower. But for now, I'm keeping it in there because I'm still applying flowers. Now here I have those beautiful roses. Again, cutting it off about 2 inches, leaving about 2 inches of stem is what I meant to say. Now notice that I didn't keep the leaves on the rose because I'm going to be placing them back into the wreath, and I'm going to use those leaves to frame that rose once I have all the florals on. I'm also going to use the hydrangea leaves to frame the hydrangeas. So I'm going to definitely be adding greenery. via the leaves that came with the hydrangea and the roses, but also the greenery that you saw that I purchased at Hobby Lobby at the onset of the video. So I have that other pretty flower that I just poked in the wreath. I have 2 of those. Now, I wanted to be certain where I was going to place that bow on the wreath. Again, for the same reason. I don't want to waste florals by covering them up with a big bow, so I'm just sparsely putting flowers in that section, which is on the left side around 9 o'clock, or inhabiting that wreath from 8 to 10. Now, some of the flowers, yes, are going to be underneath the bow, but notice how I'm concentrating my flowers more so on the rest of the wreath where that bow is not going to be. There's some of my filler flowers. Now I'm going to be using my filler flowers and any leaves that I have left over to cover up that green floral foam on the outside or the outer perimeter of that wreath all the way down to the base of the outer perimeter, because I don't want that green floral foam to show by any angle that you look at the wreath. So that's why I definitely keep my greenery. And I have my filler flowers on hand as well, just to cover up right there, which is what I'm showing you. You don't want that to be showing. Or at least I don't. So I make sure I cover that up. Now, when I put my flower in, you'll notice even now I have it a little bit tilted down into the wreath. I don't have it flat upon the wreath. I tilted it a little bit. That's something that I do sometimes with an insert into a wreath. It just depends on what wreath I'm doing. And now I'm showing you how I'm framing my rose. I'm just going to take a little hot glue and put it on those leaves and stick them in there. As well, now I'm adding my greenery in small bunches in between flowers all around the wreath, and I'm trying to acquire a balance with that. I have some of that English ivy, and what I do with that is I kind of curl it because I want to create the effect that it's weaving through that wreath. Again, I'm showing you that we have to cover that up, and I do that with leaves and fillers. And there's where the bow is going to go. When we wiring that on with a floral wire, a nice long green floral wire. There's that other greenery that you saw me show you at the onset of the video. So I'm just filling in spaces, adding some beautiful greenery touches to that wreath. And it's super, super pretty. Okay, now I'm going to prepare the flower. Now I've already painted it white as well as the high sign. I just used Snow White Waverly chalk paint. Now what I'm going to show you is how I created the polka dots on that little high sign. So I took a pencil. I dipped my pencil eraser in that fuchsia pink colored paint. And now I'm just going to dab that eraser on the high sign all around the sign. Some of my polka dots are going to be trailing off the side or peeking around the edges, however you want to look at it. And this just creates a really super cute touch to this wreath. Now notice that it's the opposite print of the polka dotted ribbon. I switched it up. I made the sign white with fuchsia polka dots instead of fuchsia with white polka dots. And I think that's a really awesome thing to do, to change up your patterns on a wreath like that with your colors. So this is super easy. Just dab the eraser in there, press straight down on top of the wood letters to create your polka dots. They don't have to be perfect. They're kind of cute not being perfect, if that makes sense. I wasn't looking for perfect in the polka dot. Super cute. Love it. Now I ended up, that sign weighs like absolutely nothing. Like an ounce. It's so lightweight. So I didn't use pipe cleaners or wire to wire that on. You'll see later, I'll show you that I just used Aleene's Tacky Glue, and that's just going to hold it right onto the florals. Okay, so I have this poly burlap mesh. Now notice it doesn't have any metallic stripes going through it. It's a solid, flat white. Now you could purchase this poly mesh on Amazon, on craftoutlet.com. I believe they have it at Hobby Lobby, but you just want a plain mesh. Now, if you'd like, you could cover this flower as well with fabric, or you could cover it with scrapbook paper, or you could paint it. You have a number of options. So my mesh is only 10 inches wide. By the way, that's a 10-yard roll. So I have plenty left over for another project. So what I'm going to have to do is piece this, but it's going to be so easy because of the type of material this is. All I have to do is cut off the factory edge. So I'm putting raw edge to raw edge together to seam it together, if that makes sense. I'm going to show you that here in just a second. But you'll never be able to see where I seamed this. Now, if you're doing fabric, of course, you want to try and get exactly the right fabric so you don't have to seam it. But when you're seaming something like a poly mesh, it's really, really easy. All right, so what I'm going to do is take my squirt bottle of Mod Podge and squirt it on my flower. And then I'm going to take a sponge applicator from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to spread out a nice thick layer, not thick, but moderately thick layer of Mod Podge all the way out to the edges because I want that poly mesh to adhere very well all the way out to those scalloped edges of that flower. So easy enough to do. Be sure you get a nice coat all over because you don't want any bubbles, which would only be created because you didn't get a good application of your Mod Podge, because this mesh will adhere very, very well to that wood flower with a nice application of Mod Podge. Now I'm going to do my seam here with the additional piece of mesh. I sped this up, obviously. I don't really work that fast. Okay, so now you could already see that you don't see that seam, right? You'd never be able to tell that I had to piece that together. Okay, so I'm going to go around the piece with the palm of my hand, press everything down, make sure everything is pressed into that Mod Podge. Now, after this sets for a little bit, then I'm going to squirt more Mod Podge, but on top, and I'm going to go around and put a layer of that Mod Podge on top of that poly burlap mesh. And this is going to really be a double assurance that it's very well sealed onto that flower. And here I am doing that. This is the top coat. And I'm going to go all the way around that flower and cover that. Now this works beautifully to create very stiff edges on the edge of those little scalloped edges of that flower. So when I go to trim it up, it's very easy because I have those nice stiff edges on the outer perimeter of that flower. Now it's easy enough to just take my scissors, nice sharp scissors, and I just go around and trim off all of that excess mesh. Very easily done. And you can see the lines of that flower, which is very beneficial. And I'll tell you why here in just a minute. But I have everything all cut out and it's looking good. Now I'm pointing those lines out again because what we're going to do is take some twine. Now, if you use the Dollar Tree flower, it's a different flower, but it's a wood flower. I want to say it's maybe 6 to 7 inches. And I think the floral foam wreath ring there is 10 inches. So that flower at the Dollar Tree, you could do the same wreath just with a different flower is what I'm getting at. And you could do the very same thing that I'm doing with that flower. So what I'm doing is defining the petals of the flower because it looks pretty bland like it is. So it needs something. So I'm using my little quilling glue applicator. Anybody know what quilling is? I love to quill. Oh my gosh, I just love it. Anyway, there's a small glue applicator that they sell in the quilling department, and that's what I'm using here. And the reason why I like it is I put Elmer's glue in it, which is a little bit more of a runny glue, and then I just have that fine tip on the applicator, and I could just go around my lines, put a nice fine little stream of glue, drop my twine right down in it, and that will hold beautifully. Now I'm going to go around that entire flower, defining the petals. Now remember the circle in the center, that we're going to do differently. Now there's multiple options for that as well, and I'll fill you in on those in just a minute. But see how pretty? Now, if you need a tool to help you with this part, that little hook tool works great for that. Just to help kind of move the twine around and place it where you want it. And here you have it all finished. I think it's beautiful. So now it's time to work on the center. Now you could take a wood round, like a 2.5 to 3 inch wood round, and put it in the center. You could put glue on the wood round, put a blob of batting, and cover it with fabric. You could have a puffy center for your flower. That's one option. You could use half wood rounds like I showed you at the onset. Paint them and just fill that center in a circular shape with those half wood rounds. Or you could do what I'm doing. I wanted to bring this polka dot ribbon into the flower somehow. So I decided what I was going to do was use 1 inch and 3/4 inch wood rounds. I used 7 large ones and 6 small. And I'm just going to put a little bit of Elmer's glue on there, cut some small squares of that ribbon, press it onto the wood round. Keep a towel handy because that glue seeps right through that ribbon, but you won't see it. You won't see it after it's dry. And I'm just going to cover each one of these. And this goes very quickly. It's not a huge endeavor. I do like detailed projects. I think you all who subscribe to my channel realize this by now. But I'm also doing some quick, fun, easy, and very pretty projects weekly on a new feature where I take one item from the Dollar Tree and I create 3 different DIYs with that one item. So I'm covering all those up, and I'm just going to place them in a circular configuration in the center of that flower. As you can see here, I have 6 of them. Then I'm going to place the smaller ones on top of the 6, and then just one of the 1 inch one right in the center. And this is what I had as my vision. I wanted some type of polka dot on my flower, and this is how I decided to do it. But again, there are other methods, as I just informed you. Use your creativity. I like the puffy center one. That would have been my second option, to use like a 2 to 3 inch wood round, put some glue on it, put a blob of batting on there, cover it with a piece of fabric, and have a nice little puffy center. That would be pretty, especially if you do a fabric on this flower. I think that would be really awesome. So I'm just going to use hot glue to glue down all of my little circular pieces there. And that will be the center of my flower. Now I'm showing you, I put a piece of floral wire through the center of my bow because I needed a nice long wire that would wrap around that wreath form. So I just attached that at 9 o'clock where I had originally planned. I had mentioned that. That's where I was going to put it. And I use Aleene's tacky glue to glue my sign right onto the florals. Again, this sign weighs absolutely nothing. It's going to stay on there. Aleene's tacky glue is very durable. And then I'm going to insert my flower in there. That's the way it's going to go. Not flat, but tilted, as I mentioned before. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a couple of floral wires on the back. Again, because that wreath is so thick, I'm using a longer wire than a pipe cleaner. Usually I use pipe cleaners. This time I'm using this floral green wire. So I'm going to use some hot glue as well as Aleene's tacky glue. And I'm going to use a piece of felt, which is something I typically do on the back of any type of sign or insert that's going to go into a wreath. I place my little felt piece on there, and I'm going to add some Aleene's tacky glue. And then I'm just going to pop it down in the center, tilting it a little bit. And then I'm just going to wrap those wires around that wreath form. And that's it. You have a beautiful summer wreath. I hope you like this one.